Hello again, back out on the climb, Grown Black Folks Talk. And yesterday, and I'm making these two videos on the same day, I was sharing with you how Robert E. Lee gave the playbook for the end of Reconstruction in 1866, and how it's a playbook that we can use. Stop talking with people who do not care about you, don't have them around, build your own circles, and build laws and policies and how you're going to tell your story for yourself. He literally told this to the Republican convention, and they did not understand the significance of what he was telling them. He himself did not participate in any of the Jim Crow laws that become in the 1870s because he died in 1870. But he built the infrastructure whereby the next generation of Southerners could be in a law school, a news-making school, and have everything they needed in one place to figure out how to do this. And he told them, cut people out that aren't with the program and do what you're going to do. They listened to Papa Lee, and they did it. And we also have a right to seek our own companies, to cut out the noise from people who hate us, cut out the noise from people that mean for no good, and move on. But there is a human nature issue. And a human nature issue is, how do you do this while emotionally all you want to do is just find shelter to rest and just be for a minute? How do you build while still broken and needing to heal? How do you get into the mind of getting beyond talking about and releasing emotion about a situation? How do you get beyond just shelter seeking to moving on to building and doing infrastructure for yourself and for others? Well, let's just start with the self first. How do you do this? Here's what I observe. I've talked to a number of what I call my wisdom age Black people in the last weekend or so. And I've kind of been listening around to channels that I respect of my wisdom age Black folk. And here's what I'm observing. People taking action, the ratio is about 40-1 right now. If I look back over Season the Crypto Bull Run for Financial Freedom in terms of people that I know have used it and gotten results, it's the same thing. Because what happens is, unless we see how something's going to meet our immediate need for safety and shelter and all those things, we don't feel those things are met, then we're less likely to see why we should invest the energy into something new. I recognize Season the Crypto Bull Run is out there for a lot of people. It's a long step. When people are trying to figure out how to pay their bills, investment is kind of hard to deal with. You want me to put money to the side and leave it alone, and I don't see it having gone up tomorrow. And in fact, if it's Bitcoin, it may have dropped 10,000. That's not on my radar right now. I respect that. I had to get a little bit more humility and get a little bit more perspective. However, I'm seeing this across spectrums of things. And I'm kind of sitting up here thinking, with my knowledge of human development, because I am a credentialed teacher, that what I think we're seeing is people who have never been safe. So many Black women who have not safe in girlhood and turning around every corner have not been safe. That when something new comes up, like the Project U Discord, if we are not very careful, we will collect ourselves to another place to hang out. Content creator Lennon Honor described the misadventures of Umar Johnson and getting his building as creating yet another kick-it spot. It can happen. A lot of churches are kick-it spots for Black people in different phases of their existence and different phases of their interaction with cultural Christianity. I didn't say anything about real Christianity, because real Christianity is going to be in the street making a difference. Real Christianity is going to be in the street doing the things that Christ did. Loving on the people as Christ did. Calling out evil the way Christ did. Real Christianity is going to be in the streets every day. But a lot of churches are basically clubs too. It is what it is. You don't have to like what I just said. It's a fact. Finding safe places to live while Black, because living while Black is becoming a problem. Again, living as a free person by Black has actually always been a problem. People always felt they had white people felt they had a privilege to be able to question you. And if you could not say what white person you belong to, they could appropriate you themselves half the time in certain states. You weren't supposed to be out here doing things for yourself. And what you see in the United States is a reversion. If you show up somewhere that some racists don't think you should be, they basically want to either put you in your place and have you collected. I've actually had that said to me on the streets of San Francisco, actually. The good old liberal San Francisco. So I can only imagine what it's like going to be like in some places in the South as the Trump administration settles in. And now there's no federal civil rights enforcement. So imagine what that's going to be like. That said, when you are getting emotionally traumatized every way you turn, and that's all you've known into your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, some black women have never known safety. So finally, when you get to the possibility that there are protection and that you can be, so the most human thing to want to do is just, I can be myself for a minute. I can rest. I can relax and just be myself. Just be for a minute. I get it. I get it. Because I've seen it enough times to understand that is a dynamic. How do you also build by broken? Well, we're going to go back to old General Lee for just a second. Because if Confederate General could do this on the side of evil, having been built up by a black woman's milk, there's no way that you as a black woman can't figure out how to do this. And gentlemen, I am talking largely to the women right now, but this generally speaking goes for you up until we talk about this particular discord. But it also goes for you. Robert E. Lee was broken pretty early. His father, unfortunately, probably today would have had a serious mental health diagnosis. We kind of watch his behavior and we look at it. And Lee inherited some of it. But his financial misadventures led him down one path after another of trouble. His family went bankrupt. So you imagine you're from one of the biggest slave-owning families. Your family has been in every European horror that Anglo-Saxons have done, back to Richard the Lionhearted. And here you are, best bosom friend to George Washington, broke as a joke. And with no way to stop himself from trying to get back that feeling of being that person, him, from the Revolutionary War. He decided when Robert, his youngest son, was just 5 years old, who worshipped him, to go intervene in a fight he had no business being in, was nearly beat to death. So your hero leaves the house, a strong, strapping man of 56, and returns a Hulk. And that's the last time you will see him, because they sent him to the islands to be cared for by black folks to get some air, but he never fully recovered. And in trying to get home to his family several years later, died. Only made it as far as Georgia. How hurt was his son by this? The last journey his son took was to go find his father's grave. That's how devastated he was. And of course, being a homeless slave owner when your mother still has relatives is another thing, but your mother's health is going away. She done had, multiple children. There's no birth control. And so she's had multiple children and did not even want to have you, and could not think of what to name you, having run through her list of names. And finally, I have a brother named Robert and I have a brother named Edward, so I guess I'll name him Robert Edward Lee. That's how that happened. Your mother becomes permanently disabled by the time you are 11, making you the man of the house. Your older sister loses a whole arm. So you are moving from place to place and house to house. You are essentially rich homeless. You finally get to West Point because your father's old friends can pull some strings. You graduate in time for your mother to be dying and to find out the rest of your family has not picked up the ball. So you graduate to go home and do that, and your mother dies, and you have your first nervous breakdown. Your childhood friend comes to comfort you. You fall in love, you get married to her, only for her to have a hard birth on the second pregnancy, and she becomes disabled, just like your mama. This man still, in that broken condition in 1864, got real close. Took out 100 to 120,000 people to do foolery, and changed the course of American history, and very nearly came close to winning that war, and would have had me in perpetual servitude. So this is a broken man, broken in childhood, like many of us, because of a father who couldn't get it together, and still managed to get strong enough to do all that on the side of foolery. Now, you will immediately say, He's a Lee. He has more community support. This is true. He's white. He has more community support. He is a founder's son. Yes, all this is true. But what I'm talking about is the inherent strength that you have, even if you are still broken, if you realize, we know that Robert E. Lee said this to someone. My back is against the wall. If this war is lost, I'll lose everything I have with it, because he inherited through his wife. She owned the biggest plantation in Virginia. She was also disabled. So if they lose the plantation, he literally loses everything. He's not going back to work for the U.S. Army. He's likely to get hung. There's no available resources. All his sons are going to be captured by the Union Army. When you realize that your back is against the wall, you would be surprised what you can do. When you no longer have any distractions, you'd be surprised what you can do. You'd be surprised at the strength you can find. And if that old man could find that kind of strength on the side of evil, we're not even talking about the fact that he was still to realize that his prayers weren't getting through for a good reason. It was dawning on him a little bit, because he did write to his wife and say, well, we were not worthy to have certain things, so they were taken away. When he surrendered, he said, as a Christian gentleman, I have to consider it's more than me. If we keep going, everybody in Virginia is going to starve. There was some inkling in his head that allowed him to finally put it down and walk by faith and accept the loss of everything. There was some inkling of real faith somewhere in that man that allowed him to do that, instead of ordering that last charge and letting Sherman continue to march like a crazy man through the South. There was something in him. There was maybe some real faith in him somewhere. But I'm not talking about us as black women having some maybe real faith. Consider who we are. Consider Mother Brigadier Harriet Tubman, who by this time has turned around to be a spy for the Union Army, about whom Robert E. Lee said, all the information that the Union has, they're getting from our black servants. Y'all all want to bring your servants up to camp, but this is the problem. Harriet's telling them everything, and everybody else is telling them everything we're doing. Consider the faith of having to figure out how to get across the Underground Railroad and then come back and rescue other people. We're comparing giants to midgets in terms of faith and spiritual power. Those are our ancestresses. And again, there is no Lee without a black woman's milk. So that woman was sitting up there praying that maybe what she told that man would kick in, and at some point on April 9th, 1865, it finally did. There is no reason why, once you realize the strength that you have, that you cannot rise and build for yourself, even though emotionally everything is not perfect. One of the things that I have discovered, being 44 and having to walk away from things and people that I loved over and over and over and over and over again, sometimes the healing is in going to do the right thing that you are supposed to do. And it is nowhere else. We cannot be coddled. We cannot be cuddled up on. Sometimes the only healing is to be found in the path you are supposed to be walking and growing on and building. I'm about to say, have I said too many bad things about the Confederate general? I was just wondering. I understand that when life hits us, we want to curl into a ball. That's a part of the process. But you also have to realize, as a black woman, if you did not know it last week, please know it now. You do not have the luxury. Just like Robert E. Lee didn't have the luxury and was already defeated, but just didn't know it yet. We're not. We've had setback in the last election, but we're not defeated. We got choices still. We can be on other shores if we want to. You just got to get your life together and use the infrastructure that black women have built. Shout out to Stephanie Perry. You can learn how to take a sabbatical and all that, even here. Shout out again to Stephanie Perry. You can learn how to defend yourself. Shout out to Confidence with Love, my fellow noir auntie. You can learn how to reclaim your dignity as a single woman. Shout out to Level Up Single Mom, Kiana Footman, who is putting together Project U. There's a lot of things you could do. We are not defeated yet. As long as we do not curl up in a ball and try to seek shelters that will be overrun unless we do the work necessary to build the infrastructure that we and our families need to survive. I understand that it's hard to do this. I understand that sometimes we just want to curl up and cry. But even on a physical level, at some point, if you're going to survive, you're going to need to get up from there, find something to eat, and if you're responsible for anyone, you will need to prepare something for them as well, and you need to keep going. With that said, we are looking for people to join the Project U Discord who are ready to do for themselves. Let's start there. Not just another hangout spot where we can talk about what we're mad about and what Donald Trump did. That man has 900 pages that he can flip through every day and do something we don't like. Instead of being mad 900 days in a row, you figure out what you're going to do to get through this time period. The man is 78. He cannot run for president again. Now, can they set up an absolute dictatorship? It's not beyond the pale of possibility, but you still got to figure out what you're going to do if that is the case. There is a screening process. That link will be in the description. And I want you to look at that link, and I want you to go through it if, and only if, though, you're not looking for another place to just hang out and talk about and kick it. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get Black women together who are ready to work on their own personal security, strategy, and self-care. And then later on, those who want to move on a little higher and have all the wonderful skills that Black women have, interested in working on building infrastructure for other people, other Black women and their children. So I welcome you if that's what you want to do. But again, if you want just another kicking spot, this probably isn't the right choice for you. And that's just a fact of life. I recognize we have a 40-to-1 ratio. But at a certain point, I realize that we are also broken and hurting. But if we have far more strength than a Confederate general, remember who won the war? Remember the United States colored troops? Who were their mothers? And don't forget Mother Brigadier General Harriet Tubman. We cannot allow ourselves to give ourselves excuses. If you're ready to build for yourself, then please hit the link and go through the screening process for the Project U Discord. And I hope to see you there. Bye.